Hey everyone, my name is Paige Hunter, and this is my current event on 3 popular travel trends within the travel and tourism industry. So, diving into our introduction, travel and tourism offers a wide variety of opportunities to see new places, experience new things, try new food, and just meet new people. Travel has not always been accessible. For a while, there was a lot of limitations because, airplanes and cars and all of those things weren't what they are today. And COVID 19 also recently had a huge impact on the travel industry. It actually nearly decimated the entire industry. In 2020, studies show that the industry itself lost 75% of its entire value. Thankfully, it is on track to make a full recovery, and we can see that domestic travel is actually set to make up about 70% of the industry's revenue by 2030. Now, travel trends are starting to kind of take over the industry with the rise of TikTok and social media influencers. Some of these are really good, while others pose a risk. So let's dive in. The first one is sports tourism. It is one of the most popular rising trends. It is worth roughly 500 billion pounds, and it's responsible for about 10% of the revenue of this tourism market and industry. It is actually the fastest growing sector within the industry. Sports events such as the Olympics, NFL games, the FIFA World Cup, and March Madness, just to name a few, bring in fans from all over the globe. People want to see these big events, they want to see their teams play, and they will travel from wherever and pay whatever to be there. Cities such as Las Vegas, for example, also work to host as many games as possible because they want that extra surge in tourism. But what are the issues that come with sports tourism? First, overcrowding. It presents a strain on the transportation, the public services, lodging, and specifically the locals. There is a very, very limited capacity to how many people these cities can host. And with these sporting events, thousands of people are coming for these events, and there's just not enough room for them. Certain cities, like Paris, for example, will build stadiums for one event or a series of events. So, take the Olympics, for example. They build all of these buildings and tracks and all of these things just for one event. And then, once the event is done, the stadiums don't get used. In addition, there's a big impact on the local people. Essentially, they are basically pushed out of their homes due to how crowded it is. They don't want to be around the city or around their hometown when these events are occurring because they live, maybe where that team plays. They're used to it, but they can't have a calm lifestyle because of this eccentric sports tourism. And then also, all of these different international sports events, like I said, lead to people traveling from all over the globe. So it can lead to a lot of cultural misunderstanding because not everybody is going to have the same cultural values, beliefs, religion, habits, and that sort of thing. So it can lead to a lot of conflict. And lastly, there are several environmental factors that are at play, but specifically, there's a lot of excess waste when it comes to sports tourism, all of the trash from the food eaten at these events, or, all of the fossil fuel from the cars. And, there's just a lot of different environmental factors that are at play and do hurt the environment because of how many people are coming to one place. Second is coolcationing. Sounds really fun. But it basically refers to a vacation in a cooler climate as opposed to a warm one. So this kind of began as a talking point for influencers, and it very quickly gained momentum. Research has found that there's been about a 300% increase year to year in search history for cool vacation spots. Not only are we seeing the shift on the internet, but also airlines are seeing it, and the European Travel Commission has seen a 28% increase in Europeans desiring a cool vacation spot as opposed to a warm one. In addition, there have been a lot of heat waves in 2023 and 2024, so this has had a big impact on the desire for a cooler vacation spot as opposed to a warm one, because people are already experiencing these excessive heat waves and they don't want to vacation in a hot place. Locations such as Alaska, Norway, Canada, and Iceland have kind of become the go-to vacation destinations. In addition, cool locations allow for year-round travel, even with work, because if you're desiring to go to a cold location, chances are it's always going to be cold, so you don't have to wait for it to get warm like you would the beach. However, there are some issues with coolcationing. First, there is a big impact on the warm weather travel destinations. Many of these are reliant on tourism to stay afloat, and there is a risk in them closing or just having some severe revenue loss with more people shifting to cold destinations. And second, there are a lot of environmental factors at play and how it impacts the nature and the wildlife of these more remote and, colder destinations. The ecosystems and this, essentially pure air becomes at risk for contamination. And so essentially the sustainability of this trend is kind of at risk because people want to go to these locations because, of the wildlife, of how beautiful it is, because of the unique animals. But, the more people that come to these locations, the more this becomes at risk. And so essentially the reason people are traveling to these locations, might not exist or be the same. And lastly is the silent travel trend. So this basically offers a disconnect from the busy, noisy, everyday life that most people live. People want a restful vacation away from the tourist hotspots and, jam-packed itineraries. Locations that offer true silence, such as maybe a yoga retreat or a fully silent retreat, are kind of what people are desiring. They want to find peace within nature that rejuvenates them, while being surrounded by stunning and essentially untouched landscapes. There's also a desire to disconnect from technology. There's a desire to disconnect from technology, hence the name silent travel. And that is appealing to anyone, as we are all connected to our phones 24/7. And lastly, the silent travel provides a very stress-free, stress-relieving experience with better sleep and genuine self-awareness. But there are several issues with the silent travel as well. Safety is the biggest concern. Many people desire to turn off their phones or even leave their phones behind when they go on these silent travel excursions. Some hike alone, some book a cabin alone in the woods where there's no cell service. So there's just a huge safety concern, especially if someone's traveling by themselves. If there were an emergency or if they got hurt, there's just no way to get in contact with anyone. And also, there are a lot of environmental concerns. The rise in tourism in the essentially untouched places presents concerns for the wildlife and the nature to basically become exposed to these people, these toxic chemicals, the toxic emissions from cars and airplanes. And so it would make it hard for them to stay at the serene, beauty that they are because of the rise in tourism. So, what is the impact on marketing? For sports tourism, it's very unpredictable. It has a very short lifespan. And when travel is reliant on a very specific event or a season, it makes marketing very hard to do and ineffective if it's not timed correctly or with the season or with the event. Essentially, there's also no loyalty to one destination. People are only loyal to a team or to a sport. So they might travel to Miami, for example, to watch the Dolphins play. but they aren't loyal to Miami itself. Cities also have started to become known for their sports, but with these huge season gaps when the teams aren't playing, they essentially kind of remove themselves from the running in the tourism industry because there's no appeal of visiting the city when there's no sports going on. Excuse me. For silent travel, many people seek off the grid and crowd free destinations. So the traditional digital campaigns are ineffective because they're just going to advertise, more popular destinations. In addition, there's a lot less reviews and organic online exposure because people turn off their phones. And finally, online reviews of maybe top 10 relaxing spots are going to deter travelers from going to those destinations because they want to be alone. And then for coolcationing, it really takes away from the warm tourist locations, that need the people and the tourism to survive. A lot of people will take longer stays when they're coolcationing, and they might book last minute because you don't have to wait for warm weather, which kind of make seasonal promotions and travel campaigns ineffective because you can go at any time, truly whenever you want. Diving into the 4 C's, first is content. With sports tourism, we would focus the shift to be on purpose driven and emotionally resonating content. This would expand past just single events to year-round experiences at each of these locations, such as featuring restaurants, local gyms, and year-round events that occur. For coolcationing, we would highlight, some of these calmer spots in the warmer locations to make sure that they're still getting, people visiting them. But we would also feature a hybrid lifestyle for these cool locations for a work vacation balance. We would make sure there's options, for year-round travel to all of these locations that also work with the work-life travel balance. And finally, silent travel. There would be a focus on storytelling. We really want to ensure that people are telling about their experiences, but we also want to advertise safe, quiet getaway locations. And so first-hand accounts would be the main focus of content for this. For conduit, sports tourism would focus on real-time outlets such as a sports app and geo-targeted ads for local activities year-round. So, as tourists are going to a sporting event, they'll get geo-targeted ads for a restaurant or for maybe a concert happening in the town. For coolcationing, we would focus on LinkedIn and YouTube to kind of show how this work-life balance works, and maybe people who've done it, places that they've stayed and that they've liked. This would also really work well to attract younger people through YouTube, but also, some of the older generation through LinkedIn who are, very work-focused but want to incorporate more travel. And lastly, silent travel, we would use podcasts or maybe yoga instructors or hikers to kind of discuss their recent travels, maybe their experiences at these silent retreats or these yoga centers. Moving on to consumption, with sports tourism, we would focus on short, shareable videos, location-based tips and guides, and just fun countdowns for these games, for the local events, and things kind of happening around the town. Coolcationing would focus on maybe calendars, downloadable guides, and easy to access information that really focuses on these working individuals. And lastly, silent travel would focus on reflective but optional formats such as, journaling prompts and eco-friendly itineraries for those people who just want to step away from, the busy life and take time to themselves and gather their thoughts, but also be immersed in nature. And lastly, convergence. Sports tourism would focus on incorporating one interactive platform for all your needs. So this would include ticketing, lodging, transportation, food, and they'd all have geo-tracking. That way, it's all based on the location that you're in. And hopefully, with this, it would entice consumers to keep coming back to one location, which would build loyalty. Coolcationing would focus on productivity within, a travel platform or maybe a few, with specific booking accommodations that have workspaces and eco-friendly attractions nearby to ensure that we're keeping the wildlife and the nature, safe and away from all of the extra harm that travel could bring. And lastly, silent travel would focus on anonymous check ins, wellness add ons, and safety all within one app so that there still is that safety, but people can also kind of, escape from reality and take that time to themselves. So, in conclusion, travel basically offers something for everyone. Some people want to follow a trend, and others want to go to their go to destination, like the beach. It's important to focus on marketing efforts for all of these destinations. We want to market hidden gems, the local attractions, and the favorite restaurants, and even the ones that people don't know about. Traditional tactics aren't always going to work for every trend, but they can always be adapted.